The void stretched out in every direction, a canvas of quiet stars and drifting dust as the UNSV Providence moved slowly along its designated route. She was an old vessel, scarred, patched, and long past her prime, but her engines purred steadily, and her pilot knew every quirk in her system like an extension of his own body. Elias Ren sat slouched in the worn command chair, one boot braced against the edge of the console, fingers idly tapping a rhythm only he understood. The glow of the Varnic Nebula pulsed dimly through the forward viewport, bathing the freighter in a pale blue shimmer. The cargo hold was packed with outdated tech-stripped weapons arrays, dead communication modules, broken drones, junk, scrap-bound for reclamation. It was supposed to be an uneventful run, routine, safe, but Elias had never trusted quiet space. "Captain," came the voice of Lyra, the ship's onboard AI, warm, crisp, and edged with a mechanical undertone that betrayed her age. "Long range. Sensors are detecting minor quantum distortions at bearing 265. They are non-cyclical, irregular ... but persistent." Elias leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "Define persistent. 15 pulses in the last 2 minutes. Increasing in strength. Pattern does not match known navigational buoys or civilian transmissions." He stared at the readout as it flickered onto his console, a ghost in the dark. His hand hovered above the command panel, but he didn't touch it yet. His mind wasn't on the screen. It was somewhere else. The scent of burning metal, the scream of atmosphere venting, a face his daughter's flickering on a cracked display, mouth moving. In silent panic before static swallowed it whole, he blinked. That was years ago. That was another life. "Log the anomaly," he said finally. "Route around it. Keep our signature low." "Acknowledged," Lyra replied. "Rerouting ... done." Elias rose from his chair, stretching his back. The silence in the ship was more than mechanical. It was lived in. No crew, no noise. Just him and Lyra, just the way he wanted it. Or so he told himself. Far out in the distance, beyond even Lyra's maximum resolution, a shadow moved. It wasn't a natural drift. It adjusted course. It angled in response. The Korlath swarm had found their mark. From the bridge of the Reaving Claw, Commander Threx watched the human vessel glide through the dead zone, its signature weak and outdated. A perfect target. No escorts. No weapons. Just a relic drifting through space. "Begin passive tracking," Threx ordered, mandibles clicking in anticipation. "Prepare the others. Let's see what humanity does when we strip away their illusions of strength." Back aboard the Providence, Elias watched the data stream settle again, pretending not to notice the faint uptick in static on the secondary bandwidth. Not military-grade jamming, no, this was something else. A presence, watching, measuring. He exhaled slowly, lowering himself back into the chair. "Lyra." "Yes, Captain?" "Start powering down all non-essentials. Begin ghost mode." "Don't. Light up any diagnostics unless I say so." There was a pause. Then softly, "Understood." Outside, the stars shone cold and unblinking. Inside, Elias Ren stared into the dark like an old predator who had just caught a familiar scent. He'd been here before. He knew how this game started, and he knew exactly how it ended. The Korlath ships moved like shadows, silent, precise, arrogant. Commander Threx stood tall on the command deck of the Reaving Claw, his 4 eyes focused on the holographic image of the drifting human freighter. The Providence looked exactly as expected, obsolete, underpowered, and stupidly exposed. Its outer hull gave no signs of defensive systems. Its drive emissions were barely detectable. To Threx, it was the equivalent of a wounded herbivore limping through predator territory, perfect for the message he intended to send. "Bring in the stalkers," he said, voice clicking in command language. Do not fire yet. Let him see the net close. Around the Providence, 3 Korlath vessels emerged. From quantum shadow-thin, spindly crafts with hulls that shimmered like oil on water. Their sleek designs coiled through space, wrapping slowly around the human ship like nooses waiting to tighten. Inside the Providence, Elias Ren stood barefoot on the cold floor of the engine room, hands coated in carbon dust. He had the access. Panel open, cables exposed like veins. He wasn't fixing anything. He was preparing. Lyra, he muttered, reaching for an old junction port no AI would consider active. What's our distance to the Varnic boundary ridge? 17,000 kilometers. The Korlath fleet has deployed 3 interceptors and 1 command-class vessel, all on passive tracking. They believe we are unaware. Elias grinned faintly. They're not wrong yet. He finished tying off a copper wire to a data bridge that hadn't been used since the Earth-Mars conflict. There was a faint hum. Then, the engine room lights flickered. Begin Lazarus startup sequence. Stage 1 only. Are you sure? Lyra's tone was gentler now, almost human. I didn't survive 3 war zones just to get vaporized hauling scrap. Far above him, within the Providence's black box systems, old algorithms stirred protocols buried beneath years of software updates, hidden like a virus inside a corpse. Coded by paranoid military engineers who never trusted peace. Designed. For one thing, survival by deception. Elias returned to the bridge. The stars hadn't moved, but his heart was pounding now. The enemy was close enough to see him. That meant they were close enough to make a mistake. Let them come, he muttered under his breath. Commander Threx leaned forward as Elias' freighter drifted closer to the kill zone. Send transmission, he ordered. Let's give the monkey a warning before we crush him. A sharp chime echoed in the Providence. A hologram formed in mid-air, Threx's insectoid form projecting from the Korlath flagship. Human, the alien said, his voice dripping with contempt. This space is under the protection of the Korlath swarm. Your presence is unauthorized. Your vessel will be confiscated, and you will be processed for relocation. Resistance will result in immediate annihilation. Comply. Elias didn't move for a moment. He let the silence stretch, then casually raised a mug of cold coffee to his lips. Copy that? He said finally, voice low and dry. I appreciate the hospitality. You mind sending a shuttle? This heap doesn't fly so well when it's playing dead. Threx's image tilted its head, confused by the calm tone. The feed ended without another word. Lyra chimed in again. There. Repositioning. Preparing to board. Weapons are powering but not yet locked. Elias leaned forward. Stage 2, Lyra. Passive cloak. Signal scattering, vent coolant in controlled bursts. Make it look like we're overheating and shutting down. Outside, the Providence began to shudder, faintly at first, then violently. Coolant jetted from rear thrusters. Power flickered through her running lights. Her reactor signature dipped, then spiked, then FLA tail INED dot to the Korlath. It looked like a critical failure cascade. Inside, Elias remained calm. He reached under his console and pulled out a small metal box, a relic, rusted at the edges, marked with the faded insignia of the United Terran Forces. He opened it slowly. Inside was a single data crystal. Authorization. Elias Ren. Shadow Cell 9, Lazarus Protocol, he whispered. Confirmed, Lyra replied, her voice suddenly different. Colder, sharper. Welcome back, Commander. For the first time in 5 years, Elias smiled without regret. Let's remind the galaxy why they buried us. Across space, the Korlath ships moved in. Their mistake had already been made. The boarding clamps struck the hull of the Providence with a mechanical screech. shaking the ship with just enough force to seem careless, an insult from one predator to another it didn't fear. From within the Korlath breaching vessel, Commander. Threx stood behind the boarding squad, mandibles twitching with anticipation. He watched the human ship's diagnostics scroll across his visor, oxygen levels stable, power grid still fluctuating, internal systems erratic. This thing's barely alive, one of his lieutenants hissed in their native tongue. Not even worth harvesting. Wrong, Threx growled. The message is worth more than the body. We drag it through space like a trophy, let the other humans see it crumble. With a hiss of pressurized air, the corridor opened. The Korlath boarding party surged into the freighter like a hunting pack. But something was wrong. The ship was dark silent, except for the quiet hum of emergency life support. No clatter of movement, no sign of panic. Only the faint rhythmic drip of coolant somewhere in the vents. Their steps echoed down the curved passageway. Weapons raised, eyes glowing in the infrared. Then the doors behind them sealed. Back on the Providence's bridge, Elias sat calmly at the command console, watching the biometric feed of the boarding party through hidden sensors woven into the walls. He sipped the last of his coffee, setting the mug down on the console with a gentle clink. Lyra, he said evenly, Stage 3. Acknowledged, she replied, her voice once again laced with ancient command subroutines. Stage 3. Predator inversion. In the Korlath boarding corridor, the air pressure suddenly dropped. Artificial gravity spiked, slamming the lead invaders to the floor with bone-snapping force. The lights switched to infrared disruptors, blinding their vision, triggering disorientation in their multiocular nervous systems. Gas hissed from the vents, odorless, inert to humans but mildly hallucinogenic to Korlath physiology. Then came the sound. A low, thrumming pulse reverberated through the ship's hull. Not mechanical, musical, almost primal. A frequency from old human war tech designed to trigger unease in alien minds. The Providence had stopped being a cargo hauler. It had become a trap. Elias walked through the access corridor slowly, boots thudding on the floor. He was wearing an old armor vest, no markings, matte black design for stealth infiltration. In his hand was a compact pulse rifle with burn marks down the side, as if it had seen too many years and too much fire. He entered the maintenance junction where the Korlath squad was still scrambling for orientation. One saw him blurred through the haze and raised its plasma carbine. Too slow. Elias fired once. The Korlath dropped, armor sizzling where the pulse round burned through. He stepped past the twitching body without emotion. Tell your commander, he said coldly, the next one dies faster. On the Ravenclaw, Threx watched his feed go dark. One by one, his boarding team's telemetry flatlined or began broadcasting scrambled, incoherent data. Something was tearing through them. Status. He barked. No return transmissions. We've lost 6 vitals. Thermal readings inside the vessel are erratic, non-linear. Send in more troops. Commander, a communications officer cut in. We're receiving an audio file on repeat. From the human ship, Threx snarled. Play it. Over the speakers, in a voice calm and carved from iron, came Elias Ren's voice. You picked the wrong ghost ship. The channel cut. Begin full assault, Threx roared. Cripple the vessel, destroy its interior. I want nothing left breathing. Commander, another officer interjected, pale under his iridescent armor scales. We just detected a secondary signature. Beneath the hull, something old, something shielded. Threx paused, eyes narrowing. Back inside the Providence, Elias walked through the remnants of the boarding squad. He wasn't reckless, he wasn't there to kill unless he had to. But he had to send a message. As he reached the central AI core chamber, Lyra's holographic avatar appeared, a blue silhouette of a woman in antique Earth military attire, glitching slightly from age. Targeting systems online. Lazarus firewalls disengaged. Do you wish to initiate full combat subroutines? Elias hesitated, looking around at the dim-lit space. He touched a hand to the bulkhead scarred with memories. This ship was once built for silence. For war in the dark, for vengeance. Not yet, he whispered. Let's bleed them first. Outside, Korlath warships moved closer, bristling with weapons, preparing to open fire. The Providence's hull shuddered, but she didn't break. Instead, her belly opened like a blooming flower of steel, revealing an ancient mechanism from a darker time rotating rings, blinking amber lights, and a targeting array that no alien sensor had detected before. It pulsed once. Then again, then. The weapon fired. A gravity lance, a dead relic of early human warfare, compressed a corridor of space between the Providence and the nearest Korlath interceptor. It didn't explode. It simply vanished, crushed into itself by a field no Korlath engineer had even theorized. On the reeving claw, Threx stood frozen. That's not possible, he whispered. But it was, and Elias Ren was only getting started. The fireball hung in space for only a second, silent, impossible. A brilliant burst of distorted light where a Korlath interceptor had just been. Then it was gone, and the void reclaimed its stillness. On the bridge of the Providence, Elias didn't speak. He watched the swirling debris scatter across the stars, some of it still glowing from the raw spatial compression. Lyra's systems ran quiet, without fanfare. There was no need for theatrics. That was just a warning. Inside the shattered hull of the nearest Korlath destroyer, emergency lights flickered to life. Commander Threx stood locked in disbelief. One of their vessels had vanished, not from explosives or mass fire, but something older, cruder, yet devastating. Recalibrate all threat matrices, he barked to his surviving officers. That ship is no longer classified as a civilian transport. It's a relic weapon. Possibly pre-Dominion technology. The bridge of the reeving claw buzzed with tension as crews worked to reposition their formation. They moved slower now, cautiously. But Elias didn't wait. Lyra, he said calmly, time to light the cage. Her voice replied softly. Trap. Pattern Alpha 3 confirmed. Igniting decoys. Power shunting to pulse walls. Around the Providence, dozens of small devices launched silently from concealed ports coated in deflective alloys, each broadcasting random M signatures. Within moments, the dead zone had transformed into a hall of mirrors. To Korlath sensors, the region now looked like a sudden battlefield with multiple threats, some real, some phantom. One Korlath vessel fired in panic, launching a spray of high-velocity plasma toward a false contact. The pulse wall caught the Kima blast mid-flight and turned it back, bending the energy field like liquid glass. The plasma struck the edge of another Korlath ship. The explosion was real. Aboard the Providence, Elias didn't flinch. He moved through the central corridor, pausing at an old bulkhead marked in faded stenciling. Lazarus Unit 03 authorized only. He placed his palm against the scanner. It scanned, hesitated, then unlocked. The room beyond was unlike the rest of the ship, sleek, silver, and humming with dormant power. In its center lay a suspended pod, not cryogenic, not AI. Inside, a human figure floated, eyes closed, body scarred. A woman, Lyra's voice whispered from above, "Do you wish to awaken?" Commander Arden. Elias stared at the pod for a long moment. His voice cracked slightly as he replied, "Not yet. Not unless we're losing." He closed the door behind him and returned to the command deck, but the pod had already registered his presence. Subroutines activated. Neural monitoring engaged. Deep in her dreams, Arden stirred. Outside, the last remaining Korlath vessels began to adapt. They stopped firing at illusions and started scanning for gravitational distortions. They recalibrated, compensating for human misdirection. That's when Admiral Vex Taller appeared on Threx's command display. Her holographic form towered in regal posture, insectoid armor gleaming. "Explain your failure." Threx straightened, mandibles clenched. "The target was misidentified. The ship is a trap one built with technology our sensors cannot categorize. Its pilot is dangerous. We suspect he is linked to the ancient human Black Ops programs." Vex's eyes narrowed. "One man, one ship, against 4 of ours. And you call this a misidentification?" Threx hesitated. "He is not acting alone. We detected a secondary signal, buried AI protocols, encrypted pulse communications routed through the nebula." Vex's expression darkened. "Then destroy the nebula. Scorch the entire sector. No survivors. The message must remain ours to write, not theirs." Threx began to transmit new commands to his fleet. Back on the Providence, Lyra's tone shifted. "Elias, the nebula is destabilizing. They're weaponizing it. Plasma ignition fields have been launched." He stood in silence, eyes calculating. "They're trying to erase the battlefield. Rewrite the narrative. If no one sees it, it didn't happen." He moved toward the communication core. "Not this time." He opened a compartment and withdrew a quantum drive capsule, old, fragile, shaped like a bullet. He inserted it into the main relay and keyed in a sequence only he knew. "What are you doing?" Lyra asked, genuine concern coloring her voice. Elias paused. "Ending their monopoly on the story." With a flick of his hand, the capsule launched. It wouldn't go to Earth. It wouldn't go to military command. It would go to every open frequency node in the outer colonies, miners, traders, mercenaries. Anyone with a signal receiver would see what happened here. They'd see the Korlath get played. They'd see a ghost ship fight back. And they'd see that humanity wasn't done yet. The plasma fields roared to life, swallowing the edge of the nebula in light and fire. Korlath ships darted away to escape the ignition wave, but the Providence didn't run. "Shield frequency locked," Lyra said. "Brace," Elias muttered. The wave hit. For one moment, the Providence vanished inside a storm of heat, radiation, and electromagnetic chaos. The Korlath fleet declared victory. Their admiral turned away, satisfied, but inside the chaos, a hidden core reactor shifted, one built not to survive destruction, but to use it. The Providence punched through subspace, using the heat as a veil, disappearing into the void. And when the storm cleared, there was no wreckage, just empty space. But in 22 colonies across the frontier, screens flickered to life. Miners looked up from their drills. Traders froze mid-transaction. Civilians stared in silence, and they saw it. A human ship fighting back. A lone captain outsmarting an empire. And the last words of Elias Ren echoing across the stars. "You thought we forgot how to fight. You thought wrong." The ripple of Elias Ren's broadcast hadn't just traveled. It had detonated. Within 6 hours of its release. His message had been captured, copied, and distributed across more than 200 independent systems. Fringe outposts, private military contractors, exiled colonies, and even black market information networks lit up with the same grainy footage. The Providence, scarred and smoldering, turning against a superior alien force, surviving, winning. But not by brute strength. By being underestimated. And just like that, the illusion shattered. The Korlath swarm, long considered untouchable, uncheckable in their dominance of fringe space, had been exposed, not by a fleet, not by a general, but by a man who was supposed to be dead. Back in deep space, far from the aftermath. The Providence floated silently inside a hollow asteroid orbiting a decaying gas giant. The ship was hidden, powered down save for life support and one dim command. Console flickering near the forward viewport. Elias sat alone, leaning forward with elbows on knees, his face lit by the pale blue of Lyra's static-laced hologram. "You've made yourself a symbol," she said quietly. "I didn't want to." "B," he replied. "You never do." Elias ran a hand through his gray-streaked hair. "I just wanted them to stop. I wanted them to see us. To stop pretending we're some backwater nuisance." "They saw," Lyra said. "And now they're afraid." "No," Elias murmured. "They're angry." He was right. On the deck of the Vex Crucible, the Korlath's primary flagship, Admiral Vex Taller stood before the Dominion's High Council in an encrypted war room transmission. "This human captain must be erased," she said, her tone tight with suppressed fury. "His signal has infected over 100 local nets. He's undermining our reputation, making us appear fallible." "Your failure created the spark," another counselor hissed. "He is not the disease. He is the diagnosis." "Silence," Vex snapped. "This is not about one human. It's about the illusion we built, the one we can't afford to lose. Then restore it." "I will," Vex said, "with fire." She initiated directive Talonfall. Every outpost, every freighter, every vessel within 100 light-years of the Varnic Nebula that showed signs of human defense capability would be declared an insurgent vector. No warnings. No diplomacy. No survivors. 2 days later, the Varnic colonies burned in the skies above Resha 9. Plasma storms rained down from orbit. Civilian towers crumbled. Atmospheric generators were vaporized. The Korlath deployed exterminator drone swarms of intelligent machines that didn't speak, didn't ask questions. They just erased. It wasn't war. It was censorship, and Elias Ren watched it unfold on the Providence's forward screen. Fists clenched at his sides. Lyra's voice was soft. "We have to act." Elias shook his head. "We act, we escalate. They want me to come out of hiding. They want me to be the symbol they can kill. You already are." He stood in silence for a long moment, then turned toward the sealed Lazarus chamber. "I can't do this alone," he whispered. The pod hissed open. Commander Arden rose from the mist, muscles tense, eyes wild with residual neural shock. Her chest heaved. Her hair was damp with cryofluid, her voice hoarse. "Who the hell pulled me out?" Elias met her gaze. "You remember me?" She studied him, nodded slowly. "You're the one they buried." He nodded back. "And we're unburying the rest," he said. 3 hours later, the Providence initiated a hyperburst maneuver burning clean through an asteroid field to avoid Korlath listening posts and entering the debris cloud near the Ossen Belt. There, buried beneath dead satellites and mining wreckage, waited the Helix Graveyard, the resting place of Earth's canceled weapons programs. The Lazarus archived. A system-wide vault of Forbidden's tech, sealed after the war. "Still intact," Arden muttered, watching the terminal unlock under Lyra's biometric codes. No wonder they were scared of us. Inside the archive, stealth drones, adaptive shielding, kinetic impact coils, AI plasma hybrids, prototype Starjump nodes. Elias stared at a file labeled Project Solace. He opened it. Inside, files detailing infiltration into Korlath command systems through harmonic signal mimicry, an exploit that used the Korlath's own biology-linked tech as a vector. Not brute force, but subversion. They could make the Korlath see ghosts. They could make them turn on each other. Arden grinned. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" Elias didn't smile. His eyes were steel. "I'm thinking we turn their illusion into a nightmare." Meanwhile, back on the Korlath Council world, cracks were forming. Not in walls, but in unity. Several minor species under Dominion control had seen the Elias Ren broadcast. One, a sensitive neural mesh race known as the Terran, secretly initiated contact with the fringe colonies. Another, the Vasari, who had long feared the Korlath's control of breeding rights and planetary migration, began to mutter of rebellion. One man, one ship, one mistake, and now the center could not hold. The Dominion was bleeding credibility, and in the dark corners of the galaxy, humans were waking up to a truth they had long buried. They were not alone. They were not outgunned. They had simply forgotten what they were capable of, but Elias Ren had reminded them, and now the fire was spreading. The sky above Kultras 5 shimmered like molten glass, the atmosphere still laced with the residue of orbital fire. Craters marked what once had been farmlands. A mining colony was now a smoking grave. Korlath exterminator drones moved through the ruins, their spindly legs crunching over blackened bones, eyes scanning for life signatures, not to preserve but to extinguish. Far above, watching from the darkened edge of the stratosphere, hovered a stealth-configured vessel the Korlath couldn't see. The Providence had returned. Inside its bridge, Commander Arden leaned forward over the sensor display, sharp-eyed, jaw clenched. Her voice was low, controlled, shaped by decades of discipline. 5 drone squadrons, thermal cloaks, organic flight algorithms. These aren't machines, they're predators. Elias Ren stood beside her, arms crossed. His face looked older than it had a week ago. Less like a ghost, more like a storm ready to break. They're not looking for survivors, he said. They're making sure the story doesn't spread. Lyra's voice came through softly from the console. Shall I engage the interference array? Not yet, Elias said. Let them think Kultras 5 is dead. We're not here to play hero. We're here to plant the seed. Arden tapped into the targeting interface. You sure this will work? It has to, Elias replied. They weren't there to destroy the drones. They were there to rewrite them. Down on the surface, near the collapsed comm tower, a beacon pulsed weakly from beneath the rubble, emitting an encoded signal reverse-engineered from Project Solace. A mimicry of Korlath command subharmonics, wrapped in human logic code. A Trojan horse. One of the drones paused, head tilting, receptors twitching. It moved toward the beacon slowly, then stopped. Its red optics blinked once, twice, then turned blue. Above, Lyra's interface flashed. Drone reprogramming successful. Command vector overridden. New allegiance confirmed. Elias exhaled through his nose. Now we give them a new purpose. Moments later, the converted drone turned and attacked its own squad, ambushing them from behind, slicing through one with plasma fangs, disabling another with a magnetic disruptor pulse. The remaining units, confused by their own neural network feedback, opened fire on each other. From orbit, it looked like a malfunction. A tragic internal systems failure. To Elias, it was proof the Korlath were not invincible. Their strength was their flaw. Everything was connected, one signal, one mind, and he had just inserted chaos into the bloodstream. A day later, across 6 systems, similar drone patrols began reporting erratic behavior. Units refused to execute termination commands. One landed on a colony and began broadcasting the Elias Ren message on loop. Another flew directly into the engine exhaust of its own mothership, destroying both. In the Korlath war chamber, Admiral Vex Taller watched the reports in seething silence. This is no longer a human nuisance, she growled. This is contagion, eh? Lower-ranked officer cautiously spoke. Their viral vector appears to be harmonically coded. It's not just infecting drones. It's affecting fleet relays. We may be facing recursive corruption. Vex turned sharply. Deploy Black Shroud. Gasps echoed around the chamber. Black Shroud was not a weapon. It was a purge. Dominion-wide EMP sweep designed to sterilize all infected or vulnerable Korlath tech, including civilian nodes, medical satellites, and agricultural processors. Collateral. Damage wasn't a cost. It was the objective. But even that would take days to prepare. And Elias Ren wasn't waiting. From the new Lazarus, base built inside the fractured remains of an asteroid habitat, Arden oversaw the rebuilding of something. Ancient. Earth's Spectre fleet. Long thought dismantled after the Pox Accords, the fleet had never truly been destroyed, merely hidden, scattered across derelict stations, buried inside civilian hulls, disguised as freighters and debris fields. Now, one by one, they were awakening. In silent systems, old Terran warships, powered up with shaking cores and roaring reactors. Their AI interfaces hummed with renewed purpose. Their weapon banks came online, but they weren't just ships. Each one had a story. A pilot who had vanished, a mission that had never been completed, a promise that had never been broken. 17 vessels operational. Lyra confirmed. 7 more activating within the week. Elias stood before the strategic holomap, eyeing the spread of Korlath assets. "We don't attack their fleets," he said. "We hijack their truth." "What's the first target?" Arden asked. He tapped one. Glowing red marker on the map. Korlath Relay Station Theta 19. Central to their narrative network. It's where they craft the propaganda, the version of reality they broadcast across the Dominion. "You're going after their truth machine," Arden said, almost in awe. "We don't need to outgun them," Elias said. "We just need to outtalk them." Hours later, the Spectre fleet appeared over Theta 19 like phantoms, unregistered, unmarked, moving in formation with terrifying elegance. No demands. No negotiation. Just transmission. The station scrambled defenses, but it was too late. The Providence dropped from warp directly in front of the relay array and did something no one expected. It didn't fire. It BROADCASTED. Live. Across the entire Dominion. Elias Ren's face filled every screen. "To the citizens of the Korlath Dominion," he said calmly, "you've been told we're savages. You've been told we resist order. But I want you to know something." He leaned forward slightly. "We remember. We remember what it's like to lose our freedom, our families, our voices. You don't have to kneel for protection. You can stand. You can fight, or at the very least, you can question." His eyes burned like embers. "And once you question a tyrant, they fall apart." Then the feed cut. And Theta 19 exploded behind him, but not from human weapons. The drones had done it themselves. They had chosen, because even in the heart of the Dominion, something had changed. The illusion was breaking. The lie was dying. Fire was spreading faster than the Korlath could smother it, and Elias Ren was done hiding. The stars over Delvern's edge shimmered with unnatural light. Not from the suns, those had long since gone red and cold, but from the countless warships arrayed in silent formation. The Korlath Dominion had mobilized its final response fleet. Dozens of capital-class dreadnoughts, thousands of drone fighters, anti-gravity fortress ships, planetary burners, all of them now converging on a single set of coordinates. Sector VIRNIC. Elias Ren's sector. He had crossed a line, and now they meant to erase him from existence, along with every trace of the Spectre fleet, the Lazarus Project, and the spark of rebellion he had ignited. Inside the bridge of the Providence, Elias stood at the center of a storm. His eyes swept the incoming data fleet compositions, warp signatures, weapon readouts, all of it too large, too fast, too final. 2,000 ships, Arden muttered beside him, jaw tight. "They're throwing everything at us. Because They have to, Elias replied, not because they want to. Lyra's voice cut through the silence. Multiple interstellar relays report civilian unrest. Dominion governors are reporting riots. Uprisings. Their infrastructure is fracturing. They're trying to crush the idea before it becomes belief, Elias said. That's why they're coming. From behind them, the Spectre captains, those old warriors awakened from exile and silence, stood like shades in the dark, watching him. What's the plan, Ren? One of them asked. We can't win in a slugfest. We don't have the numbers. Elias turned slowly to face them. We don't need to win the battle, he said. We need to survive it long enough to end the story they're writing. Arden stepped forward, nodding. Relay stations. Broadcast satellites. We flood the hyperwave nets with the truth while they fire. And what if they kill us before we get the message out? Another asked. Elias looked toward the viewport, where the Korlath fleet was beginning to drop from hyperspace like jagged blades piercing a black canvas. Then our silence will be louder than any transmission, he said. The battle began in chaos. Korlath dreadnoughts opened fire the moment they arrived, massive beams of antimatter lancing through space, tearing through decoy ships, targeting spectral hulls. The Spectre fleet scattered, using old Terran tactics, slingshot maneuvers, powered inertia dives, reflective counterfields. Each ship fought like it remembered 1,000 battles, and the Providence? It ran straight into the fire. Kinetic. Cores charged, Lyra reported, her voice now merged with the Lazarus mainframe. Targeting their central AI command relay. Elias sat in the pilot seat, sweat trailing down his brow. Good. Let's take their brain out before they realize how close we are. The Providence spun through plasma bursts, emerging behind. The enemy fleet, where the Korlath's command relay, a spire-shaped mothership, linked directly to their tactical neural net, sat untouched, confident no primitive human ship could reach it. They were wrong. EMP spike now. Elias barked. The Providence unleashed its core, an electromagnetic blast so precisely tuned that it disrupted the Korlath command net for exactly 4.3 seconds, and that was enough. Across the battlefield, Korlath ships hesitated. Drones drifted. Without instruction, firing patterns collapsed. And in that gap, the truth surged forward. Arden, aboard the relay ship Spectre 9, activated the final transmission. All across the Dominion. The feed went live. And the galaxy saw everything. They saw Elias Ren's crew rescuing civilians. They saw Korlath drones turning on innocents. They saw colonists murdered. Peace offerings rejected. Species enslaved. Cultures erased. They saw the truth. And then they saw Elias, face bloodied, eyes burning, speaking into a cracked comms unit aboard the Providence as it burned in the belly of the enemy. They thought this was about one ship. They thought this was about one captain. But this is about all of us. Every voice they silenced, every world they bent. They thought fear would keep us quiet, but fear just taught us how loud we need to be. The Providence's reactor began to overload. Elias looked to Lyra, who now existed only as a ghost in the core processor. Go, she said gently. You've already won. He smiled one last time. The Providence erupted in a sphere of light that blinded the Korlath fleet, disabling 3 dreadnoughts, disrupting hundreds of drone units. The Spectre fleet withdrew, scattering into stealth vectors, gone, untouchable. But it didn't matter. The truth had already lit the stars. 3 weeks later, in the Korlath Council chamber, Admiral Vex Teller stood alone. The chamber was in shambles. Half the council was gone, exiled, executed, or fled. Protests raged on a dozen worlds. Trade routes collapsed. Systems declared independence. The Dominion had not fallen. It had fractured. From the wreckage of Cultress 5, a statue stood, a crude monument of scavenged alloy shaped into a tall human figure. At its base was a plaque etched in 100 languages. He was alone. He stood anyway. Arden stood on a cliff overlooking the valley of Varnic's second moon, watching new outposts rise built by humans and ex-Dominion, species alike, rebuilding, reconnecting. The rebellion had no flag. It had a name, Elias Ren, a man who refused to be erased. Beside her, a young Terran child tugged her hand. "Is it true?" the child asked. "Did he really do all that?" Arden knelt, brushing hair from the girl's scaled face. "He didn't just do it," she whispered. "He started it." The child looked to the stars. "Will he come back?" Arden smiled softly. "No," she said. But his voice never left. And in orbit, the last backup beacon of the Providence blinked once. Then again. Its transmission? Still playing. Endlessly. For anyone who dared to listen.